Chapter 8 January 1958 Qinghai-Tibet Plateau. Zoe joined in the excited chatter as the staff gathered for the monthly meeting. Nearly all the lead personnel from the different departments had congregated in the meeting room at the General's Tower, eager for the latest updates. Commissar Chu started with a briefing on the project's progress. Day by day, number 221 plant brings about dramatic changes. Last week, we completed number 15 factory, which means our key organ, the heart, has started beating. Number 22 plant will be finished ahead of schedule as well. The most exciting news is that last week, Marshal Lin Biao broke ground at the site of number 5 factory, the testing control center. It will be ready for operation in 10 months. Everyone in the room clapped and cheered, proud to be part of such a historic endeavor. Zoe was astonished that so many brilliant minds voluntarily gave up their comfortable city environment for the harsh and isolated life here. She felt honored to be working with them. Commissar Chu gestured for quiet again. Today, we welcome Comrade Igor Kuzinji, a Russian nuclear expert who has won a medal for his significant contributions to the success of the Soviet nuclear armament. He led the crowd in applause for Igor, a big smile on his face, unaware that he had pronounced the foreign exporter's name wrongly. My name is Igor Kaczynski, but please, call me Igor. He stood up and enunciated his name carefully so all could catch the pronunciation. Then he flashed a gentle smile and sat down. Though he was tall, lean, and solidly built, his voice was surprisingly thin. The mop of dark hair, in startling contrast to the wispy moustache and freckles on his pale face, gave him an innocent, boyish look. Zoe thought his name did suit his look. Actually, she had first heard his name 2 days prior in Commissar Chu's office when she was told of her promotion to the person in charge of the testing control center. Your staff records show that you graduated from Berkeley with a master's degree in nuclear science. So the party has decided to appoint you as the leader of the testing control center, with the help of a Russian scientist. Zoe was so surprised that she didn't know what to say. She had made up her mind that she would only work quietly and wait to one day be reunited with her parents in Beijing. Commissar Chu started to lecture her when he saw no expected reaction. You have been given this huge responsibility because we trust your high political integrity, and we trust you to use the knowledge you learned in America for the great cause of developing a Chinese nuclear bomb. So studying in America was an advantage to her career now? How? She felt confused and scared to take the promotion. She didn't want people to know she had been suspected as an American spy in the past. She tried to decline the job quietly. Thank you, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing now. What? Commissar Chu was stunned. So, you refuse to defend our motherland? No. I mean, what else could you mean? I don't know how to speak Russian. It will be very hard to communicate with this expert. It'd be better to have someone else take the position. She took a deep breath, thinking she might have just avoided the problem altogether. He smiled. It's not a problem. Mr. Kuzinji speaks very good English, I've been told. Ah, Zoe acknowledged. A revolutionary soldier should take on whatever assignment the party gives. Count yourself lucky you're given an opportunity to tackle one of the most challenging science projects ever conceived. Thank you. Zoe nodded, knowing she had no other option but to accept now. Now seeing Igor's easygoing character, she relaxed slightly, just wishing their work together would go smoothly. Commissar Chu continued with a smile. I was told you played an important role in developing your country's hydrogen bomb. We are so pleased to have you here. Thank you. Igor nodded, looking embarrassed. Good. With his help, along with our other Russian brothers, we will achieve our ultimate goals soon, and then the American imperialists won't dare try to bully us. Comrade Igor will help us set up the Testing Control Center. Comrade Meng Zhuyi will lead this project. Commissar Chu pointed at Zoe, and everyone turned to look at her. Zoe stood up and gave Igor a friendly nod. I'm sure this project will be another big achievement for Chinese-Soviet relations. Moving on, Major Leo will address some security issues. Unlike Commissar Chu, Major Leo preferred to mingle among the workers during his presentations. He seemed to think being in the crowd was a more potent leadership style, a way to keep the workers on their toes. Somehow, he always seemed to find Zoe, and she wondered whether his presence at her elbow was due to random chance or a subtle, deliberate choice. Although he seemed friendly enough, she tried to avoid talking to him. Besides his overbearing personality, his teeth were stained a yellowish-brown from incessant smoking, and his breath nearly made her gag. This morning again he stopped right next to her. As was his habit, he tucked his hands into the small of his back, which pushed his stomach out and made him look even fatter than he already was. His belt strained to contain the bulge under his green uniform. Stifling a giggle, Zoe kept her eyes down and tried to concentrate instead on his record as a great hero. During the War of Resistance against Japan, he had fought in northern China, leading a special task force to the west suburb of Jinan, a large industrial city. They hijacked a military train, stole the cargo, and blew up the carriages. As they were retreating, Japanese reinforcements arrived and, according to the stories, General Liao and just 5 soldiers held off the Japanese while the rest of the team escaped. Only Liao and one other soldier made it back to base, and both of them nearly died. In the Korean War, he earned a chest full of medals and the nickname Die Hard. Everywhere he went, people applauded him and showered him with admiration, welcoming whatever he had to say. Now his deep voice resonated through the room. Comrades, for the most part, people have complied with the security rules well. However, there are a few issues you need to pay more attention to. First, although scientific personnel are free to access most information in this facility, remember that you need permission before exchanging data between research branches or departments. 2 researchers have failed to do so recently. I've instructed the Internal Security Department to investigate further. Major Leo's words were slow and measured, his loud voice striking their ears like blows from a hammer. He scanned the room, observing people's reaction underneath their utter silence, until he was satisfied he had their full attention. The second issue is correspondence. Some of you have picked up letters and parcels directly from the mailing center. This practice is not permissible. Major Leo paused to emphasize his point, slapping one fist into the other palm. Zoe looked up at him sideways, intimidated by the powerful body that loomed over her. She thought he might burst into flame right in front of her. Major Leo threw both hands in the air. I must remind everyone again, never forget our class struggle. As Chairman Mao has said repeatedly, we still face possible invasion from American imperialists and the Nationalist Party of Taiwan, and possible sabotage by both their spies and internal class enemies. Therefore, we must take strict precautions to protect ourselves and our great country from enemies, both known and unknown. All correspondence must go through the security director in your unit. I repeat, all the correspondence, in or out, goes through the security director in your unit. No exceptions. One researcher put a tentative hand up, an unusual act in the face of such a clear directive. What about correspondence within number 221 plant? Do we have to go through the snail path even to deliver a message next door? Zoe joined in with nods around her. Yes, we are obliged to submit to the rules of military secrecy, she thought. Yet how far should this prohibition go? All of us here were chosen through the strictest procedure, so the military authorities don't need to treat us like spies or prisoners. On several occasions, she had been told to redraft letters to her parents when the security director thought they revealed too much sensitive information. Eventually, adhering to the director's strict standards felt like too much trouble, so she gave up trying to write them. After a while, she tried to remember when she had received her parents' last letter and realized with horror that she hadn't written to them in nearly 10 months. The guilt ate at her heart, but then she was too afraid to write anything, not wanting to inadvertently cast suspicion on her parents in the eyes of the party. Major Leo's face turned bright red at the challenge. I said all of the correspondence. That means internal ones as well. The researcher persisted, emboldened by the support he saw around them. But without proper communication among the scientists and different branches, we're working with blinders on. We can't conduct research effectively and efficiently. This kind of red tape only puts invisible walls around all of us, around every research branch, so no department ever knows what any other is doing. That's ridiculous. No, Major Leo shouted. As scientific personnel, you have no right to know other branches' business. Your duty is to do what you are told, nothing else. His eyes burned through the crowd. You need not worry. We will coordinate all the activities. The security issue is very clear and straightforward, so long as you obey the rules. Narrowing his eyes, he thrust a stubby finger towards the scientist. Because this man seems to have difficulty following regulations, you may need a special lesson. The researcher shrank back in his seat, suddenly aware of the potential consequence of his brazen questions. His eyes widened behind his thick glasses, and his mouth opened and closed several times, like a fish. A heavy gloom settled over the room. No one else had the courage to speak up. Zoe lowered her gaze, so Major Leo couldn't see her face. He was such a bully. She felt embarrassed just to be sitting next to him, and disgust washed through her. She heard whispers that the Major had more than just a professional interest in her. A few enthusiastic and rather noisy people had already started playing matchmaker, trying to not so subtly hint that marrying him would be the highest honor for her. At the time, she had just laughed, treating it as a joke. But now she shook her head in disbelief. How could any woman put up with this maniac? The meeting dragged on, so long that Zoe dozed off once or twice, but no one noticed. She wasn't worried about missing anything important. This was just class education all over again.